My friend's sister lied that I got her pregnant. My parents disowned me. Now the truth's out and they're begging. Alright, so here's the deal. About a year ago my life turned into a complete mess, and I've been carrying it around ever since, needing to get it off my chest. I never imagined I'd be the guy spilling his personal drama on Reddit, but I guess that's what happens when your family goes nuts and you're left standing there thinking, how did this even happen? Let me start at the beginning, because this is one of those situations where you just keep replaying it in your head, asking yourself, seriously, what the hell? My buddy Dave has a sister, Jenny. I've known both of them for years. We grew up in the same neighborhood, crossed paths all the time, hung out occasionally, nothing major. Jenny was always kind of different. I don't mean that in a cruel way, but she had some mental health stuff going on. I'm not privy to all the details, and honestly, it wasn't my business. Dave never really talked about it, and I didn't pry, but everyone knew Jenny had her struggles. Then, about a year ago, completely out of nowhere, she messages me and tells me she's pregnant. Okay, cool, right? Except for one tiny detail. She says I'm the dad. In that moment, I swear my brain just short-circuited. I literally sat there thinking, wait, what? Let me be crystal clear. I have never even hugged Jenny, let alone been intimate with her. Not once. Not ever. So for her to come at me with something that wild, I couldn't even process it. I told her straight up, Jenny, I don't know what you're talking about, but there is no way I'm the father. We have never been close like that. And she just kept repeating it over and over, like somehow I was going to magically remember a night that never happened. It was bizarre, honestly unsettling. I tried to stay calm, telling myself maybe this was part of her mental health struggles. Maybe she was confused or projecting something, but deep down I was freaking out. This is where things really started going off the rails. Jenny refused to take a prenatal paternity test. I kept thinking, if you're so sure it's mine, why not prove it? Why not shut me up and show me the results? But she wouldn't budge. Instead, she kept saying things like you need to be there for your child and you're abandoning us before the baby's even born. It was guilt trip city and I wasn't buying it. I made it clear that if she wasn't willing to take the test, I wasn't signing anything. I wasn't about to get legally tied to a kid that wasn't mine. Simple. At least I thought it was simple. I honestly believed that would be the end of it. I was wrong. A few weeks later, my parents found out. I love my parents, I really do, but they have this whole traditional values mindset, and the second they heard about it, they completely lost it. I mean, they lost it. They started calling me names, saying I was a deadbeat, a disgrace. I was standing there trying to get a word in, trying to explain, but they weren't listening. I told them, Mom, Dad, this isn't my kid. Jenny is making this up. They wouldn't hear it. Once they decided I was responsible for this baby, that was it. In their minds, the verdict was in. We had nasty arguments. Things were said that I probably can't take back, and honestly, I'm still angry about it. They kept pushing me to do the right thing and step up as a father, even though I kept telling them there was nothing to step up to. It didn't matter. To them, I was already guilty. They said they didn't raise me to be some kind of deadbeat and that they couldn't believe I would deny my own child. And here's the part that makes it even crazier. I wasn't even in the same state when Jenny would have gotten pregnant. She had been staying at a friend's place for an entire month during the time she supposedly conceived. I brought that up, thinking logic might finally break through, but my parents just brushed it off. People make mistakes, they said. But this wasn't a little mistake. This was a full-blown accusation that could wreck my life. Fast forward about 6 months into Jenny's pregnancy, and by then the entire family had turned against me. Every dinner, every phone call, every text turned into the same lecture about how I needed to man up and take responsibility. I felt like I was losing my mind. It was like being stuck in a nightmare where no matter how loudly you scream, nobody hears you. Most of my friends were on my side, thankfully, but even a couple of them started to waver, asking, "Are you sure, man? Maybe you don't remember something." Finally, my parents dropped the ultimate bomb. If I didn't step up and act like a father, they were cutting me out of their lives, disowning me, kicking me to the curb. At first I thought they were bluffing, but they weren't. They told me flat out that if I didn't go along with this, I was no longer welcome in the family, and sure enough when I didn't cave and they disowned me. Let me tell you, That hurt in a way I can't fully put into words. I was pissed off, confused, and just plain hurt. These were the people who raised me, the ones who were supposed to have my back no matter what, and they chose to believe someone else over me. My own family threw me out like I didn't matter. It was brutal. And somehow, things got even weirder after the baby was born. My mom was there at the hospital playing the role of proud grandma. I didn't even know until later. Jenny still wouldn't take the paternity test, so I had to go through legal channels to get it done. That alone was exhausting, having to fight just to prove something I already knew was true. When the results finally came in, guess what? Not my kid. 0% chance I was the father. As soon as I held that paper in my hands, I felt this overwhelming wave of relief and anger all at once. Relief because I was vindicated. Anger because it never should have gotten that far. I sent the results straight to my parents, thinking finally, they'll see the truth, they'll realize they were wrong, and maybe everything can go back to normal. But nope. Instead, my phone started blowing up. Apologies, offers of money, messages begging me to forgive them. My dad even mailed me a few $100, like that was somehow going to fix everything. And here's the thing, I kept the money. Yeah, I took it. I felt like they owed me after all the crap they put me through. But forgive them? No way. I made it clear that if they were willing to disown me over something like this, I wasn't about to open myself up to that kind of betrayal again. Most of my friends stood by me, thankfully, but a few of them, along with my therapist, started saying things like maybe you should give them another chance, they're your parents after all. And I get it, I really do. Family is complicated. But how do you just forgive someone who was ready to throw you away so easily? How do you trust someone who believed a lie over their own child? That's where I'm at now. Stuck between knowing I did nothing wrong and wondering if I should even bother trying to fix things with my family. Every time I start to consider it, I remember how fast they turned on me, and I can't shake the feeling that they failed me when I needed them the most. You'd think after everything that went down with my parents and Jenny's baby drama, things would calm down, right? Nope. Life had other plans. If anything, the whole mess just kept spiraling. Proving I wasn't the dad should have been the end of it. I wish it had been that simple. But when people don't want to admit they messed up, they'll do just about anything to avoid taking responsibility. After the paternity test results confirmed I wasn't the father, I honestly thought, okay, now my parents will realize they were wrong and maybe things can get back to normal. Instead of relief, though, everything got more complicated. First off, Jenny completely lost it. She started spreading rumors around town that I had faked the test or somehow tampered with it. Yeah, you read that right. In her version of reality, I had convinced an entire lab to rig the results in my favor. I mean, how would I even do that? I'm just a regular guy. I'm not some mastermind who knows how to manipulate DNA tests. But Jenny wasn't hearing any of it. She was determined to paint me as the villain in her story. She went around telling people I was abandoning her and the baby, that I had tricked everyone into thinking I wasn't the dad. It didn't make sense, but logic didn't matter. People started believing her. In a small town, rumors spread fast. Before long, I had strangers giving me dirty looks at the grocery store, like I was some kind of scumbag. A few people even confronted me directly, asking why I wasn't stepping up to take care of my kid. It was infuriating. I had proof in my hands, proof that I wasn't the father, but no one seemed to care. Jenny was out there playing the victim, and I was taking the blame for something I had absolutely no part in. I've never felt so helpless in my life. It's one thing when your own family turns on you, but when the entire town starts seeing you as the bad guy, that hits differently. And my parents? They were still trying to act nice, but it was obvious they had no idea how to handle any of it. My mom kept calling, leaving long emotional voicemails about how she just wanted her family back together. She never once addressed what actually happened. She just wanted to sweep it all under the rug like nothing had gone down. At one point she even suggested I come over for dinner, as if sitting around a table pretending everything was fine would magically fix the damage they had done. It wasn't just awkward, it was insulting. After everything they had put me through, they really believed that a few family dinners and some fake smiles would somehow erase all of it. No apology. No acknowledgement of how badly they had messed up. Just a casual let's move on. As if the past year hadn't happened. It felt like they didn't even grasp how much trust they had shattered. And that's the thing about trust. Once it's broken like that, you can't just patch it up with a meal and a hug. Takes real work, real effort, honesty, accountability. They weren't even willing to admit they were wrong. The kicker came when my dad tried to bribe me. He sent me an email, straight up offering to buy me a new car if I would come back to the family. I remember reading it and thinking, what? Do they really think they can just buy my forgiveness? It was so disconnected from reality that I didn't even know how to respond. I just sat there staring at the screen, trying to figure out if it was some kind of sick joke. But it wasn't. My dad was completely serious. I didn't respond. Couldn't. What do you even say to something like that? They weren't interested in fixing things the right way. They just wanted me back in their lives because it was convenient for them, and the fact that they thought throwing money at me would solve everything made me realize how little they actually understood what they had done. But somehow it still got worse. I found out later that Jenny had started reaching out to people I knew, trying to drag them into her drama. She even contacted my ex-girlfriend, Samantha, and tried to convince her that I was this terrible person who had abandoned his kid. Sam and I hadn't spoken in years, so when I suddenly got a text from her saying we need to talk, I was confused. At first I had no idea what she was referring to, but when she explained that Jenny had been messaging her, trying to stir up old drama and paint me as some deadbeat villain, I just about lost it. I called Jenny and told her to stop. I told her I was done with the games, done with the lies, and I wasn't going to let her drag my friends and exes into her mess. She laughed. Actually laughed. Then she hung up on me. It was like talking to a wall. She was so deep in her own fantasy that nothing I said could reach her. At that point, I seriously considered getting a lawyer involved. I didn't want to escalate it that far, but what choice did I really have? She was out there actively ruining my reputation. My parents were enabling her behavior, pretending none of it was happening, and I felt like I had no one fully in my corner. My closest friends supported me. Sure, but even they didn't know just how bad it had gotten. Eventually, I realized I had to make a decision. I couldn't keep living in this constant state of stress, always waiting for the next rumor to surface or the next crazy accusation to land in my lap. It was exhausting, so I decided to cut ties completely, not just with Jenny, but with my parents too. It wasn't easy. It sucked, honestly, but I knew I couldn't keep letting them drag me down with them. I sat down and wrote my parents a long email. I laid everything out. I told them how betrayed I felt, how deeply they had failed me, how I couldn't trust them anymore. I didn't sugarcoat anything. I told them straight up that I wasn't ready to forgive them and that I didn't even know if I ever would be. I made it clear that if they wanted any chance at a relationship with me in the future, they would have to start by actually apologizing and taking responsibility for their actions. No more pretending everything was fine. No more sweeping things under the rug. As for Jenny, I blocked her everywhere. Every platform, every number. I couldn't deal with her manipulations anymore. She wasn't my responsibility, and I wasn't going to let her keep pulling me into her chaos. I even had to tell Dave, her brother, that I couldn't be around his family for a while. That was tough because Dave has always been a solid friend, but I had to put my own well-being first. It's been a few months since I cut them off, and honestly, it's been a relief. There are still days when I feel guilty or start second-guessing myself, but deep down I know I made the right choice. Sometimes you have to walk away even when it hurts. Yeah, it's messy. It's complicated. But at least now I'm not constantly looking over my shoulder, bracing myself for the next disaster. I can finally breathe again. And if you had told me a year ago that this is where I'd end up, I never would have believed you. Life has a strange way of turning everything upside down like that. I guess this is where Update 1 really begins, because just when I thought cutting ties with Jenny and my parents would finally bring the chaos to an end, once I removed them from my life and tried to move forward, everything I really thought things would calm down and I could finally move on. But of course it didn't work out that easily. Cutting them off wasn't the end of the mess. It was just the beginning of a whole new one. A couple of weeks after I sent that email to my parents and blocked Jenny, I got an unexpected message from an old high school friend, Mike. We hadn't talked in years, so seeing his name pop up caught me off guard. He asked if I was doing okay. At first I thought, okay, that's random, but then he told me my parents had reached out to him. That's when my stomach dropped. Mike and I weren't even that close back in the day, so the fact that my parents contacted him was a huge red flag. Apparently, they had been going around trying to get people to talk to me on their behalf. Old friends, distant relatives, even people I barely knew. They were telling everyone that I was in a bad place and that they were worried about me. It was like they were trying to paint me as unstable. And the worst part was they were framing it as if I was the one who needed to apologize for cutting them off. Mike was cool about it. He could tell something wasn't right and just wanted to give me a heads up. But it didn't stop with him. Over the next few days, I started getting messages from all kinds of people. People I hadn't spoken to in years. People I'd only met once or twice. They all said the same thing. Your parents are really worried about you. You should give them another chance. It was insane. Somehow they had convinced all these people that I was the villain, that I had gone off the rails and needed to make amends. Couldn't believe it. There I was, just trying to move forward with my life, and my parents were out there running a full-on PR campaign to make me look like the bad guy. It felt like I was living in some bizarre alternate reality where nothing made sense. No matter how hard I tried to stay away from the drama, it kept circling back to me. The final straw came when they reached out to my boss. Yeah, you read that right. My parents called my job. I still don't know how they got the number, but somehow they tracked down my boss's contact information and called the office, telling him they were concerned about me and that I wasn't in the right headspace. Can you imagine how humiliating that was? One day my boss pulled me into his office, looking serious, and asked if everything was okay at home. I was stunned. I didn't even know what to say at first. What do you say when your boss is asking if your parents think you've gone off the deep end? I explained everything to him, the paternity mess, the disowning, the rumors, all of it. Thankfully, he was incredibly understanding. He even apologized for bringing it up. But the damage was done. My own parents were now trying to interfere with my job. It felt like they were determined to ruin every part of my life just because I wouldn't bend to their will. After that, I realized I didn't have a choice anymore. I went to a lawyer and started the process of getting a restraining order against them. I never wanted it to go that far, but what else could I do? They were messing with my career, my friendships, my peace of mind. I had to protect myself, even if it meant legally cutting them off. The process was long and stressful. Court dates, paperwork, endless anxiety. But at the same time, there was this strange sense of relief. For once, I felt like I was taking control. No more letting them invade every corner of my life. No more letting them manipulate the narrative. Of course, when they found out about the restraining order, all hell broke loose. My mom sent me this long, guilt-soaked email about how she never imagined her own son would do this and how family is supposed to stick together no matter what. She kept insisting that I was tearing the family apart, that I was the one causing all the pain. It was textbook manipulation. But this time, I didn't bite. I didn't respond. I wish I could say that was the end of it, but things actually got worse before they got better. One day, I came home from work and found my car vandalized. Someone had keyed the word liar into the side of it. I had no proof it was my parents, but honestly, who else would it be? I hadn't told anyone about the restraining order except a few close friends. My parents were the only ones with a real motive to do something like that. It felt like they couldn't handle losing control, so they lashed out in whatever way they could. I filed a police report, but nothing ever came of it. Just another reminder that even when you try to handle things the right way, sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most can turn into your worst enemies. I started parking my car at a friend's house after that just to be safe because I couldn't take any more chances, and I even installed security cameras around my apartment in case they tried something else. It felt like I was living in a constant state of paranoia, always waiting for the next shoe to drop, but eventually things started to calm down. The restraining order went through and my parents were officially barred from contacting me or coming anywhere near my home or workplace. And it was a huge weight off my shoulders. For the first time in what felt like forever, I could finally breathe. It's been a few months now and I'm still picking up the pieces. I had to do a lot of damage control with my friends and coworkers, explaining the whole situation to them and making sure they knew the truth. Most of them were supportive, but a few were skeptical, like, are you sure your parents would really go that far? And I get it. It's hard to believe, but when you've lived through it, you know how far some people will go when they feel like they're losing control. Looking back, I never imagined things would get this bad. It's crazy how quickly family can turn on you when you refuse to play by their rules, But I've learned something important through all of this. You can't let anyone, not even your family, dictate how you live your life. Sometimes you have to make the hard choice to walk away even when it hurts. And I don't know what the future holds for me and my parents. Maybe one day they'll realize what they did and apologize for real. Maybe not. But either way, I'm done letting them control my life. I've got my own path to follow and I'm not looking back. Update 2. All right, so here's where things take a bit of a turn. After I finally got the restraining order and started trying to rebuild my life, I thought things would finally settle down. But surprise, surprise, life had other plans, and just when I was beginning to feel like I could breathe again, my parents found a new way to mess with me. This time it wasn't direct contact, it wasn't vandalizing my car or sending emails, no, this was a whole different level of messed up. So one day I'm sitting at home just minding my own business when I get a letter in the mail. Nothing too weird about that, right? Except this letter is from a lawyer. At first I thought it was something related to the restraining order, maybe some final paperwork or something. But nope, it was a lawsuit. My own parents were suing me for what you ask, emotional distress, and I couldn't even believe what I was reading. They were actually suing me for cutting them off, saying that my actions had caused them severe emotional damage and that they were entitled to compensation. They even claimed I had alienated them from the rest of the family, which was complete nonsense because they were the ones who isolated me, not the other way around. I sat there for a good few minutes just staring at the letter, trying to process what was happening. I mean, who does that? Who sues their own kid because they're mad they got cut off? I didn't even know what to do. Part of me wanted to laugh at how ridiculous it all was, but another part of me was seriously stressed out. This wasn't just family drama anymore. This was legal, and it was about to get real messy. So I called my lawyer immediately because I couldn't handle this on my own. And she was just as shocked as I was. She'd seen plenty of messy family cases, but suing your own kid for emotional distress, that was new even for her. We went over the details of the lawsuit, and while most of it was clearly bogus, I knew we couldn't just ignore it. They were serious, and that meant I had to fight back. The next few weeks were a blur of meetings, phone calls, and stress. I had to gather all the evidence of everything that had happened. The paternity test results, the restraining order, the harassment I'd been dealing with. My lawyer was confident we could win, but it still felt surreal that it had come to this. My own parents were trying to drag me through the mud in court, all because I refused to let them control me anymore. But here's the thing, they didn't stop at just the lawsuit. Oh no, they had to take it a step further. They started reaching out to other family members trying to turn them against me. I started getting messages from aunts, uncles, cousins, all people I hadn't heard from in years. They were all saying the same thing: why can't you just make peace with your parents? Or family is everything, you're being selfish. It was like they'd been brainwashed into thinking I was the villain in all of this. And I was furious, not just at my parents, but at the whole situation. It felt like no matter what I did, no matter how much I tried to protect myself, they always found a way to twist the narrative and make me look like the bad guy. I mean, how do you explain to someone who's only hearing one side of the story that your parents are suing you for emotional distress because you enforce boundaries? It got to the point where I had to cut off even more people. I blocked family members, unfriended people on social media, and just shut down any connection to that side of my life. It wasn't because I didn't care about them, I did. But I couldn't keep explaining myself over and over again to people who had already made up their minds. It was exhausting, and I was done trying to justify my decisions to people who weren't willing to see the bigger picture. Eventually the court date rolled around, and I showed up with my lawyer prepared for whatever nonsense they were going to throw at me. And let me tell you, it was a circus. My parents had this whole sob story lined up about how they'd always been there for me, how they tried to help me through tough times, and how I had cruelly cut them off without reason. They painted themselves as the victims in all of this, which was honestly impressive considering they were the ones who disowned me in the first place. But my lawyer wasn't having it. She tore their arguments apart piece by piece, showing the judge all the evidence of their harassment, the restraining order, the paternity test, everything. It was brutal, and by the end of it you could see the judge wasn't buying their story. The judge ruled in my favor. Obviously the lawsuit was thrown out and my parents were ordered to pay my legal fees, which was a small victory in the grand scheme of things. But even though I won, it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like I had just barely escaped a nightmare, and there was still so much fallout to deal with. After the case, my parents tried one last-ditch effort to get back into my life. They sent me this long emotional letter about how they were sorry for everything, how they just wanted to make things right, and how they couldn't bear to lose me. It was the same old guilt-tripping nonsense they had been pulling from the start, and honestly, I didn't even respond. I'd already made my decision. I wasn't going back. There's only so much someone can take before they have to walk away for good. And yeah, it hurt. Cutting off your family isn't easy no matter how bad things get. But sometimes it's necessary for your own sanity. I couldn't keep letting them drag me into their chaos. No matter how much they claimed to love me, their version of love was toxic, and I wasn't going to let it poison my life anymore. So that's where I'm at now. The lawsuit's behind me, the restraining order's still in place, and I'm moving forward. It hasn't been easy, but I'm learning how to live without all the noise, without the constant stress of wondering when the next disaster is going to hit. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I have some control over my life, and that feels pretty damn good. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe one day things will change, maybe they won't. But right now, I'm focusing on myself, on rebuilding the parts of my life that they tried to tear down. It's been a long road, but I'm finally starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Update 3, alright, so if you've been keeping up with everything so far, you'd think after the lawsuit mess and the restraining order that'd be the end of the madness. But nope, my family found a way to surprise me one last time. And this one, honestly, it left me shaking my head because I didn't think they could sink any lower, but here we are. So a couple of months after the court ruled in my favor, things had finally started to calm down. I had cut ties with everyone causing me stress, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I could actually focus on building my life. No random messages from old friends, no letters from lawyers, just peace, or at least that's what I thought. One day I'm out running some errands, just doing normal stuff like grocery shopping, when I bump into my cousin Melissa. Now Melissa and I hadn't talked much during all this drama. We were never super close growing up, but we'd always gotten along. So when I saw her, I figured why not say hi. We ended up chatting for a bit, and at first it was pretty normal. You know, catching up on life, work, the usual stuff. But then out of nowhere she hits me with, "Hey, did you hear what your parents are planning?" I froze. Planning? I asked, suddenly feeling that familiar pit in my stomach. Melissa looked a little uncomfortable, like she wasn't sure if she should even be telling me. But she sighed and went on, "Yeah, they're throwing a big family reunion next month. Apparently they've been telling everyone they're hoping it'll be a reconciliation thing between you and them." I couldn't believe it. They were seriously planning some kind of ambush reunion to try and force me back into the family. I asked Melissa for more details, and it turned out they were inviting everyone. Distant relatives, family, friends, people that I hadn't seen in years. And the kicker was they'd been telling everyone that I'd be there, acting like I was in on this whole thing, and I was furious. I hadn't agreed to anything, and now they were setting me up to look like the bad guy if I didn't show up. It was another classic move from my parents. Manipulate the situation, make me look like the villain, and try to guilt-trip me into doing what they wanted. I thanked Melissa for letting me know and told her straight up that I wasn't going. She understood, but even she seemed a little torn, like she was buying into my parents' "we just want to fix things" narrative. I could see it in her face. She wanted me to go, to make things right. But after everything they'd done, there was no way I was walking into that trap. I went home that night and thought long and hard about what to do. I knew I wasn't going to the reunion, but part of me felt like I needed to say something. I couldn't just ignore this, so I decided to send one final message to my parents, laying everything out once and for all. The next morning I sat down and wrote them an email. It wasn't long, but it was direct. I told them that I knew about the reunion and that I wasn't coming. I made it clear that I didn't want to be a part of any reconciliation that was being forced on me, especially not in front of a crowd of people. I told them that if they really cared about fixing things, they'd have to start by respecting my boundaries, and until they could do that, there was nothing more to talk about. I didn't expect a response, and honestly, I didn't need one. I just needed to set the record straight one last time. But of course my parents couldn't just let it go. A few days later my dad called me. I didn't pick up, but he left this long rambling voicemail about how I was tearing the family apart and how this reunion was supposed to be a fresh start for all of us. He even tried to guilt me by saying your grandparents would be so disappointed in how you're handling this, and that voicemail hit me hard. Not because I believed it, but because it reminded me of all the times my parents had used guilt and manipulation to get their way. They'd pull any card they could to make me feel like I was the problem, even if it meant dragging my grandparents into it, people who had always been supportive of me, by the way. It was like they couldn't accept that maybe, just maybe, they were the ones who needed to take a long hard look at themselves. I didn't respond to the voicemail. What was the point? I'd said my piece and I wasn't going to let them pull me back into their drama. But that didn't mean it didn't weigh on me. For days after that I kept thinking about the reunion, about all the relatives who were going to be there, thinking I was just refusing to make peace. I wondered how many of them actually knew the full story, how many were getting the twisted version my parents were feeding them. The reunion came and went, and I didn't hear a word from my parents afterward. I saw some photos on Facebook, happy faces, family hugs, the whole deal. My parents were smiling, acting like everything was fine, like they hadn't just spent the last year trying to destroy my life. It was weird seeing them like that, pretending everything was perfect, but I guess that's what they were always good at, pretending. A few weeks later I ran into Melissa again, and she told me the reunion had been awkward. Apparently, a lot of people had expected me to show up, and when I didn't, there were some uncomfortable conversations. My parents had tried to explain my absence, but from what Melissa said, it didn't go over well. A few relatives even started questioning why I wasn't there and why my parents hadn't been more honest about the whole situation. I guess not everyone was buying their story after all. And that, I guess, is where things stand now. I've managed to distance myself from the drama, but I know it's always lurking there, just beneath the surface. My parents will probably never admit they were wrong, and I've accepted that I can't change them. But what I can do is protect myself, keep building my life without their influence, and focus on the people who actually care about me for real. It's been a long road, and I'm not gonna lie, it still hurts sometimes. Cutting off your family isn't easy, and there are days when I wonder if I did the right thing. But deep down I know I had to choose myself, my mental health, and my own future over the toxic cycle they kept trying to drag me into. So yeah, that's the end of this wild ride. Maybe one day things will change, maybe they won't. But either way, I'm done letting my family control my life. I've got my own path to walk now, and for the first time in a long time, I'm walking it on my own terms.